Hello everyone, this is Shreven from Ultrawide, the channel focusing on the implementation of ultra-wide resolutions in video games. Today we're looking at Assassin's Creed Mirage. This game was developed by Ubisoft Bordeaux and was released in 2023 using the Ubisoft Anvil engine. As you can see from the main menu, the game is a bit of an oddity. At first glance, as we launch into the main menu, it seems to be taking advantage of the full 21:9 aspect ratio until you take a closer look at the border. As you can see, we have these little black bars here on the side, which is a bit odd. Interestingly enough, the background used here does not extend to the full 21:9 aspect ratio. I'll touch on this more briefly. First, let's dive into the settings menu. Like most modern games, Assassin's Creed Mirage has an in-game settings menu that is accessible at any time during the game. There are various graphics options available to the user, such as shadow, texture quality, and world density. Unfortunately, changing most of these settings will require a restart of the game. However, what I care to look for on this channel are the display options here. There are four particular items that I look for. One is a monitor selector, which this game has here under the active monitor settings. As you can see, it allows me to pick between my primary and secondary displays, which is very good to see. Number 2 is an aspect ratio selector, which this menu also has. As you can see here, I can pick between 21:9, 16:10, or 16:9 aspect ratios. Very good. Number 3 is a resolution selector that includes both 21:9 and 16:9 resolutions. This is also a little dependent on the aspect ratio option. As you can see here, we have a resolution selector, and the resolutions presented here are 21:9 resolutions. If I switch my aspect ratio to 16:9, then I'm given the option for a couple of 16:9 resolutions. Oddly enough, I don't have an option for 2560 by 1440, but I do have an option for 1920 by 1080. Nonetheless, this game does have a resolution option that allows me to pick between 21:9 and 16:9 resolutions, or aspect ratios, which is very good to see. Number 4 is a UI position option, where the user can choose to position the UI at the edge or in the center of the screen. Such an option allows ultrawide users to not have to move their eyes all across the screen for certain UI elements. Unfortunately, this menu does not have such an option. So, Assassin's Creed Mirage has 3 of the 4 settings that I look for in their display menu. Once we're actually in-game, we notice an interesting oddity with the background image of the pause menu. So I just paused the game here, and it's the same background that we saw in the main menu earlier in the video. As I mentioned before, this image doesn't actually extend to the full resolution of my ultrawide monitor, so it's not a full 21:9 resolution image. Rather, it is slightly smaller than that. This feels like a weird implementation of the image, but it's honestly not a big deal in the grand scheme of things. What is more disappointing, however, is when I unpause and go to speak to this guy here, is all of the cutscenes implement these black bars. And this is the case with any cutscene with any NPC. Any quest giver, any sort of shop upgrades, any just sort of casual conversations with shopkeepers introduce these black bars. And it's honestly a weird design choice. These black bars stay there for the entirety of the conversation, and they also show up in cutscenes, which play out like back and forth conversations. Once the conversation concludes, the black bars fade away, revealing the UI, but it just feels very weird because all of these conversations occur in-engine. And all the conversations that occur in these cutscenes can be skipped using the spacebar. So it's not like the player has lost control during these events. All of this is happening in real time in engine, which begs the question, why introduce these black bars in the first place? And considering that you interact a lot with the shopkeepers and the quest givers throughout this game, the black bars bothered me a lot, but whether or not it bothers you is a personal preference.
Hello again, Tebed.
Welcome. Do you have more questions?
Thank you, Tebed. That is all for now.
Nonetheless, I measured performance between different resolutions in Assassin's Creed Mirage. My computer is decidedly mid-range for 2023, consisting of a Ryzen 9 3900X, a Radeon RX 6700 XT, a 1TB NVMe PCIe Gen 3 drive, and 32GB of DDR4 RAM at 3200 MHz. For my benchmark, I chose a sequence very early in the game, where the player must escape the Winter Palace after retrieving an object. This benchmark requires the player to quickly traverse through the world using various parkour mechanics. I measured the performance of this sequence 3 times at various resolutions and averaged the results to produce the graph you see here. Generally, the intention of this graph is to showcase the performance differential between a 16:9 resolution and a 21:9 resolution. When we go from 2560 by 1440 to 3440 by 1440, we see a 22% performance drop in average frame rates. When we go from 2560 by 1080 to 1920 by 1080, we see a 15% drop in average frame rates. Finally, when we go from 6000 by 1440 to 2560 by 1440, we see a 50% drop in average frame rates. So how is Assassin's Creed Mirage's Ultrawide implementation as a whole? Generally, when I play video games in Ultrawide, I do so because of the increased immersion and increased horizontal viewing distance in the game. When I go to objectively judge Assassin's Creed Mirage's Ultrawide implementation, I look at the metrics you see in the table. I consider the options menu to be generally excellent except for the absence of UI position options. However, the continuous, albeit consistent, implementation of black bars did bother me. With that said, I would judge Mirage's Ultrawide implementation to be good, but it could be better. With that said, that brings us to the end of the video. Thank you all so much for watching. If this video was informative to you, please hit the like button and subscribe to see more content like this. This is Shrevin from Ultrawide, and I'll see you in the next one.